The Hawthorne University campus gleamed under late August sun, its limestone buildings flanked by manicured hedges and the kind of old-money quiet that made new arrivals lower their voices without realizing it. Elias Kane walked through the east gate with a single duffel bag slung over his shoulder, his sneakers scuffed in a way that took effort to fake. His hair was a little too long, his jacket had a small tear at the elbow that he had stitched himself the night before in a hotel room 3 states away, where the duvet alone cost more than the scholarship he was about to claim. He stopped at the orientation booth. "Name?" the student volunteer asked without looking up. "Elias Kane." She scrolled, frowned, scrolled again. "Kane, Kane. Here. Scholarship dorm. Prescott Hall, room 214. You're in the basement wing." She glanced at him for the first time. "Sorry, it's not the nicest part of the building." "It's fine," Elias said. "Welcome to Hawthorne." "Thank you." He walked away before she could ask anything else. Across the quad, 3 students stood near the fountain, watching him. One of them, a tall blonde boy in a navy blazer with gold buttons, tilted his head and murmured something. The girl next to him laughed. The third, a sharp-jawed boy with a phone raised, was filming. Elias did not look at them. He had already counted them. He had already memorized their faces from the file his security director had compiled 6 months ago, when the plan first took shape. Spencer Vale, Chloe Marchetti, Tobias Reinhardt, legacy heirs, children of men who sat on boards Elias's father had once tried to buy and failed, and who Elias himself now owned outright, though they did not yet know it. He smiled, very slightly, at the cracked pavement under his sneakers. The game had not even started, and they had already chosen him. Prescott Hall's basement smelled like old radiator water and floor polish. Room 214 was a single, narrow as a closet, with a bed pushed against one wall and a desk pushed against the other. Elias unpacked slowly. A few shirts, a laptop that looked 5 years old, though its internals were custom-built and could route through 3 encrypted servers before it ever touched the campus network. A framed photograph of a woman with dark hair and a soft smile, which he placed on the desk without looking at it for too long. His mother, 8 years gone, the reason for everything. A knock at the door. Elias opened it. A short, round-faced kid with thick glasses stood in the hallway, a plate of cookies in his hands. "Hey, I'm Marcus. 2 doors down. Mom made me bring these around. She says scholarship kids stick together." Elias. "Yeah, I saw the list. Welcome to the dungeon." Marcus grinned. "Word of warning. Don't sit at the fountain. Don't go to the rooftop bar even if someone invites you. And if a girl named Chloe Marchetti smiles at you, run." Elias took a cookie. "Why?" "Because last year there was a kid named Daniel Park who came in on the same scholarship as us. Smart guy. Real quiet. They picked him. By December he'd dropped out. His mom drove up and I watched her load his stuff into a Honda Civic while he just sat on the curb." Marcus shrugged. "I'm just saying, they like to pick one every year, and you walked in alone with a duffel bag, Elias. You may as well be wearing a sign." "Thanks for the cookies, Marcus." "Sure thing." Elias closed the door. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the photograph of his mother for a long moment. Then he opened his laptop and pulled up a single document. At the top it said, "List." Underneath, 3 names already lived there. He typed a 4th. Daniel Park, Honda Civic, December. He would find Daniel Park when this was done. He would find every name. The hunt began on the 3rd day. Elias was crossing the quad when Spencer Vale fell into step beside him, all easy charm and a lacrosse jacket draped over a cashmere sweater. "Hey man, you're the new scholarship kid, right? Prescott basement?" "Yes." "Spencer, look, I know how this place is. It can be brutal if you don't have the right people. I'm having a thing tonight at the boathouse. You should come." "I have studying. It's the first week." "I have a lot of studying." Spencer laughed, but his eyes did not change. "Suit yourself. Offers open. I like guys with discipline." He clapped Elias on the shoulder, harder than friendly. "See you around, Elias." Elias kept walking. Behind him, he heard Spencer murmur something into his phone. "He's not biting. We'll have to push." By Friday, they had pushed. His laundry, taken from the basement dryer, was scattered across the main quad fountain, soaked through, with a sign propped against the basin. "Free to a good home." Students walked by, laughed, photographed. By the time Elias arrived, his roommate Marcus was already wading into the fountain, fishing out a wet hoodie with both hands and shouting at no one in particular. "Marcus, stop." "They did this to you, Elias." "I know. And you're just standing there." "I know." Elias stepped into the fountain himself, in his sneakers, in his jeans, water rising past his ankles. He gathered his clothes calmly, one piece at a time, folded each soaked garment over his arm, and walked back toward Prescott Hall with water sluicing off his cuffs. A small crowd had gathered. Phones were up. Someone laughed loudly. Someone else, a girl's voice, said, "That's actually kind of awful." He did not look at her. He had already noted the voice. He filed it away. In his room, Marcus was furious. "You should report it. Reporting it is what they want." "Elias, Marcus, listen to me. Some things you don't fight by fighting. Some things you fight by waiting." "That's a really weird thing for a broke college kid to say." Elias smiled. "I read a lot." The girl from the fountain was named Nia Okoro. He learned this the next Monday, in a journalism elective he had registered for specifically because her name appeared on the student-run podcast credits. The Margins, it was called. He had listened to every episode on the flight in. Her voice was steady, careful, and uncompromising. She had done a 6-part series on legacy admissions that had nearly cost the dean his job. She had done another on the dining hall workers' strike that had won a regional award. She was, on paper, the most morally serious student on this campus. She was also, according to Spencer's intercepted texts, the one they were going to use against him. Elias sat in the back of the lecture hall and watched her without watching her. She came in 2 minutes late, hair in box braids pulled back in a low ponytail, a denim jacket over a faded Hawthorne sweatshirt, a notebook tucked under her arm. She slid into a seat near the window. She did not look at her phone once during the entire 75-minute class. When the professor assigned partners for the first project, Elias did not need to count. He already knew the answer. Kane and Okoro. Nia turned in her seat and looked at him for the first time. Her eyes were warm brown and very tired and very sharp all at once. "Hey," she said. "Hi. You're the fountain kid. I'm Elias. I know who you are, Elias." She gathered her notebook. "Library, tonight, 7. All right." She walked out before he could say anything else. He sat for a moment with his hand still on his pen, surprised at the small, unfamiliar feeling under his sternum, and then he wrote 2 words in the corner of his notebook. "Be careful." He was not sure, at that moment, whether he was warning himself or her. The library at 7 was nearly empty. Nia had taken a table on the 3rd floor, near the window that looked out onto the chapel lawn. She had a tea in front of her, no laptop, only a notebook and 2 sharpened pencils. When Elias sat down, she did not smile. "Before we start the project," she said, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "Spencer Vale came to me last week, with Chloe Marchetti and a guy named Tobias. They offered me $5,000 to make you fall in love with me and then humiliate you publicly at the Founders Gala in November. They called it bait." She said this evenly, like she was reading a weather report. "I said I'd think about it. I haven't given them an answer yet." Elias did not move. He did not let his face change. He had not expected this. He had prepared for many things, but he had not prepared for the bait telling him she was the bait in the 3rd floor reading room on a Monday at 7:04 in the evening. "Why are you telling me?" he said. "Because I'm not going to do it, but I am going to write about it, about them. And I need you to know I'm not your friend, Elias. I'm a journalist. I'm gathering a story. The story is about what they do to people like us, and you are, right now, the freshest example of what they do." She tapped her pencil against the notebook. "I'm telling you because I won't lie to a source. That's the only reason. Okay? That's it? Okay? Nia, listen to me." He folded his hands on the table. "Thank you for not lying. I have not had many people in my life choose not to lie to me when lying would have been easier. So thank you." She looked at him for a long moment. Something in her face shifted, very slightly, the way a door shifts when someone touches the handle from the other side. "You're a strange person, Elias Kane. I've been told. Let's do the project. Let's do the project." They worked until the library closed at 11. The project was about media bias in campus reporting, and she ran rings around him, but he kept up where it mattered, and twice he made her laugh, and twice she caught herself laughing and looked away. When they walked out into the cold air, she pulled her denim jacket tighter and said, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your laundry. Thank you." That's a really bland thing to say after what they did. "I'm a really bland person." She laughed properly that time. "No, you're not. That's the weird thing." She tilted her head. "Good night, Elias." "Good night, Nia." He walked back to Prescott Hall alone, and when he got to his room, he sat on the bed in the dark for a long time without taking off his coat. The pranks escalated. They always did. By the end of September, his bicycle had been thrown into the river, his email had been spoofed to send a confession of cheating to every professor in his department, and someone had paid the dining hall workers to refuse him service for a full day until Marcus had quietly cornered the supervisor and explained the situation. The dean's office sent him 3 concerned emails that he answered politely and ignored. He had not, in any of this, lifted a hand to defend himself. He knew what defense looked like to people like Spencer Vale. Defense was admission. Defense was the wounded animal showing the wound. He kept walking. He kept studying. He got the highest grade in his economics midterm and the second highest in his journalism elective, and the highest belonged to Nia. She started sitting next to him in class. Not every day, just sometimes. The first time she did it, Chloe Marchetti, 2 rows back, took a photograph of them with the flash on. Nia did not flinch. She turned in her seat very slowly and said, "Chloe, if you take another picture of me without my consent, I will put you in a podcast you do not want to be in." Chloe lowered the phone. Elias had not looked up from his notebook, but he had smiled, very small, into his collar. The first real conversation, the one he would remember later as the one that broke something open, happened on a Thursday in early October on the roof of the engineering building. He had gone up there to be alone. The roof was technically off limits, but the lock had been broken since 2019, according to a maintenance log he had no business knowing about. He sat on the ledge with his feet dangling over open air, and he watched the campus glow under its fake gas lamps, and he ate a peanut butter sandwich he had made in the basement kitchen. Behind him, the door opened. I knew somebody would be up here. He turned. Nia was holding 2 paper cups of coffee. She walked across the gravel and sat down beside him, far enough that her hip did not touch his, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something herbal, something green. "How did you know?" he said. "Marcus told me you come up here." "Marcus is a snitch." "Marcus is worried about you, Elias." "Marcus should worry about himself." She handed him one of the coffees. He took it. They sat for a long time without saying anything. The wind was cold and smelled like leaves burning somewhere far off. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yes." "Why aren't you angrier?" He took a slow sip of the coffee. It was very good coffee, the kind they sold at the cafe across the river, $2 more than the campus cafe. She had walked across the river to get it. "Nia, listen to me." He set the cup down on the ledge. "When I was 13 years old, my mother died of a cancer that was very treatable if you caught it early. We did not catch it early because she did not have insurance, and the man she was working for at that time had told her that if she took a sick day to get a scan, he would replace her. So she did not take the scan. By the time she went to a doctor, it was in her bones." He kept his voice flat. "That man is now a senator. He sends Christmas cards to people I know. Every year I get to look at his face on someone's mantle, and every year I do not say a single word about it, because the day I say a word about it is the day he gets to defend himself, and I have not yet decided what I want to take from him. Do you understand?" She was very still. "Yes," she said. "Spencer Vale throwing my laundry in a fountain is a small thing, Nia. It is a small, small thing. I am not angry because I do not have the room to be angry about small things. I am saving my anger." "For what?" He did not answer for a long moment. He looked out across the dark campus. "For when it matters." She set her own coffee down. She did not reach for him. She did not say anything stupid. She just sat there beside him in the wind, with the smell of burning leaves around them, and after a long while she said very quietly, "I'm going to write about Spencer. Not yet. But I'm going to. And when I do, I'm going to make sure your name isn't in it unless you want it to be." "Thank you, Nia." "Stop saying thank you, Elias. It makes me feel weird." "Okay," she laughed, soft and surprised. "Okay, that's worse." He turned his head and looked at her then. Really looked at her. The line of her jaw in the dim light. The careful way she was holding her cup with both hands so they would not shake. The slight pinch between her eyebrows that he was beginning to recognize as the face she made when she was deciding whether to trust someone. The thing under his sternum moved again. He understood in that moment, with a clarity that almost frightened him, that he had walked into Hawthorne University expecting to be hunted, and he had been hunted, and he had been ready for that. He had not been ready for this. For a girl with a notebook who walked across a river to bring him coffee and refused to lie to a source, who had already seen him and not flinched, who had said, "I'm not your friend," and then sat with him on a roof in October like a friend would. He had spent 8 years training himself not to want anything from anyone. He wanted very badly to keep sitting on this roof. That night, in his room in Prescott basement, Elias opened his laptop and pulled up the encrypted line to his security director, a former intelligence officer named Ruth who had worked for his father and now worked for him. Ruth. Mr. Kane. Add a name to the protection list. Top tier. Same level as me. Name? Nia Okoro, Jr., Journalism, Hawthorne University. Thorne. There was a small pause on the line. Is this a romantic concern, sir, or an operational one? Both. Understood. I'll have a detail on her by morning. Ruth. She is not to know. Of course. And Ruth. If anything happens to her, if Spencer Vale's people get clever, I want to be the first call. Before the police, before her parents, before me sleeping, the first call. Understood, Mr. Kane. He closed the laptop. He sat in the dark of the basement room and listened to the radiator hiss. He thought about the man who had been his mother's boss. He thought about the senator's Christmas cards. He thought about a girl on a roof who had said, "Stop saying thank you," and laughed when he said it again. He had come here to take something apart. He had not come here to build anything. But here, in the dark, with the radiator hissing and his hands flat on his knees, he understood that something had begun building anyway, without his permission, without his plan, and he was going to have to decide very soon whether to let it stand. He decided to let it stand. October bled into November the way it does on campuses like Hawthorne, with sudden cold mornings and the bright, brittle smell of wet leaves, with the dining halls switching to soup, with the upperclassmen pulling out tweed, and the freshmen pretending they had always owned the boots they had bought online in September. Elias Kane bought no new boots. He kept walking in the scuffed sneakers. He kept eating peanut butter sandwiches in the basement kitchen. He kept turning in papers that ranked at the top of every class he was in, and he kept saying nothing about it. He also kept seeing Nia Okoro. It happened in small ways at first. A nod across the quad. A coffee left on his desk in the journalism elective with a post-it that said, "Yours," the one with milk in her sharp print. A late text on a Tuesday, "Library, tonight, I have a draft to argue with you about," that he answered before the screen had dimmed. By the second week of November, they were in the library 3 nights a week. They had a table. The reference librarian, a thin man named Mr. Aldridge, had stopped reminding them when the building was about to close. He simply walked past, set 2 granola bars on the corner of their table, and walked away. The first time he did it, Nia had laughed under her breath and whispered, "Elias, we have a librarian." "We have a librarian," Elias agreed, and tore his granola bar open. He was learning her in pieces. She wrote standing up, pacing the length of the table, reading sentences aloud, and then crossing them out with her pencil flat against the page. She drank her tea too hot and burned her tongue and complained about it every time and never let it cool first. She took every phone call from her mother on the first ring, no matter where she was, and switched languages mid-sentence, English to Igbo and back, and her face softened when she did, the way a closed hand softens when it forgets to stay closed. She apologized for the language switching once, and Elias said, "Nia, don't ever apologize for that to me." She had looked at him for a long moment then. She had not asked why. He was glad she had not asked. He was not sure he could have answered. The hunt, meanwhile, had not stopped. It had only refined itself. Spencer Vale had switched tactics from public spectacle to social isolation, the way a hunter switches from loud dogs to silent ones when the loud ones stop working. The invitations Elias was not getting now were the ones that mattered. The small dinners, the weekend trips upstate, the study group for the corporate finance midterm that had quietly absorbed every other scholarship student in the program except him. Spencer had been seen, twice, having coffee with Elias's faculty advisor. Tobias Reinhardt had been seen 3 times in the dean's outer office. Chloe Marchetti had stopped photographing him in class and had started, instead, not looking at him in a way that was somehow worse, the deliberate surgical erasure of a person from a room. Elias logged all of it. He sent weekly summaries to Ruth. Ruth had 3 operatives on campus now, 2 posing as graduate students, 1 as a groundskeeper. The groundskeeper had been Ruth's idea. "People tell groundskeepers things, Mr. Kane. People do not see them." Elias had agreed, and the groundskeeper, a woman in her 50s named Patrice, had already reported back twice that Spencer's father had flown in for a private dinner at the chancellor's house, and that Tobias's older brother, a Hawthorne alum now working at a hedge fund, had begun making inquiries about a small private equity firm that, unbeknownst to him, was a wholly owned subsidiary of Kane Conglomerate. Elias had read that last report 3 times, and then, very slowly, smiled. The rats were running into his walls. The jealousy beat came on a Thursday night at a party Elias had not wanted to attend. Nia had asked him to come. The Margins was being nominated for a National Collegiate Journalism Award, and the journalism department was throwing a small reception for the nominees in the faculty lounge, and Nia had said, in a voice that had been almost shy, "Elias, I want you there." He had said yes before he had thought about it. He had worn his only button-down shirt. It was a little wrinkled. He had not ironed it because he did not, in the basement of Prescott Hall, own an iron. The faculty lounge was warm and bright and smelled like cheap wine. Nia was already there when he arrived, in a deep green dress he had never seen her in, her braids gathered up on top of her head, a small gold chain at her throat. She was talking to a man Elias did not know, tall, broad-shouldered, mid-20s, in a blazer that fit too well to be borrowed. The man was leaning down toward her. He had one hand braced on the wall above her shoulder. He was laughing at something she had said. Elias stopped in the doorway. He had spent 8 years training himself not to want anything. He had also spent 8 years training himself to read a room, the angles of bodies, the directions of glances, the weight of a hand on a wall. He read this room in 2 seconds and felt something move in his chest that was so unfamiliar it took him another full second to name it. Jealousy. Plain and simple. The hot, embarrassing kind that men in his position were not supposed to feel about scholarship girls in green dresses. He nearly turned and left. Then Nia looked up across the room and saw him. Her whole face changed. Not subtly, not politely. It opened the way a window opens when the latch finally gives. She said something to the man, Elias could not hear it, and stepped sideways, around his arm, and walked across the room to Elias without looking back once. "You came," she said. "You asked me to. You're wearing a button-down. It's wrinkled. It's beautiful, Elias." He did not know what to say to that. He looked over her shoulder. The man in the blazer was watching them. He had picked up a glass of wine and was watching with the expression of someone reassessing. "Who is he?" Elias said, and was surprised at how level his voice was. Nia followed his glance. "That's Jordan. He's a producer at NPR. He came up to talk to me about a fellowship." She turned back to Elias. Her eyes were very steady. "Elias." "Yes." He was being friendly. He was not being anything else. A small pause. "And if he had been, I would have stepped away exactly the way I stepped away. Do you understand what I am telling you?" He did. He understood it down to the soles of his sneakers. He swallowed. "Yes," he said. "I understand." "Good." She slid her hand around his elbow, casually, like she had done it 100 times before, like the room could see and she did not care if it did. "Now come meet my advisor. She thinks you don't exist. I have told her you exist 3 times and she keeps asking why I won't bring you to anything. You haven't brought me to anything. I'm bringing you now, Elias." He let her walk him across the room. He let her introduce him to a woman with silver hair and a cane who looked at him over the rim of her glasses and said, "So you do exist." He let her hand stay on his elbow long after the introduction had ended. He let himself, for the first time since he had walked through the East Gate in August, stand in a public room on this campus and be seen as something other than a target. Across the lounge, Jordan from NPR finished his wine and left. Elias did not, in the moment, recognize what had just happened to him. He recognized it later, in the basement room at 2 a.m, staring at the ceiling. He had wanted, briefly and terribly, to be a man who could put his hand on a girl's waist in a faculty lounge and be unremarkable about it. He had wanted to be a man who did not have to plan a reveal in November to do that. He thought, "I will plan the reveal anyway. But I want her to know me before it." He told her on a Sunday, not all of it. He was not ready for all of it. But he told her the part that mattered, that the man in the basement room was not the whole man, that there was more, that when she knew the more she might not want any of it. He told her this in the corner booth of a diner 2 miles off campus, a place she had picked because the coffee was bad and the booths were private, and she had eaten half a stack of pancakes while he had said it, and she had not interrupted once. When he finished, she set her fork down. "Elias." "Yes." "Are you telling me you're rich?" "I'm telling you I'm not who I have appeared to be on this campus." "Are you a cop?" "No." "Are you married?" "No." "Are you 26 and pretending to be 20? "Nia, I am 20. I am exactly 20. The only thing I have lied about is the size of the bank account." She picked her fork back up. She took a bite of pancake. She chewed slowly. She swallowed. "How big?" she said. "Big. Elias. Big enough, Nia, that when I told you I was saving my anger, I was telling the truth in a way you have not yet imagined." She set the fork down again. "Why are you telling me this?" Because I do not want to walk into the Founders Gala next Saturday and have you find out the same way Spencer Vale finds out. I do not want you in the same room as that revelation. I want you to know first. I want you to choose, before any of them choose, whether you want to be near me when it happens." She looked at him for a long time. "Elias Kane," she finally said. "If that is even your real name?" "It is my real name." "Then you are the strangest man I have ever met, and I am going to need you to take me back to your basement room right now and show me one thing that proves you are not lying, because the part of me that is a journalist will not let me sit in this booth otherwise." He took her back to Prescott. He sat her on his bed. He opened his laptop and turned the screen toward her and let her watch him route through 3 encrypted servers, and then he opened a single document, a board summary, dated that morning, that listed his name in the top right corner under Chairman, and beneath that a quarterly figure with 9 zeros after it. She read it. She read it again. She did not touch the screen. "Oh my God," she said very quietly. "Elias. I know. You're going to ruin them. Yes. You came here to ruin them. I came here to see them, Nia. I came here to see exactly what kind of people they were. The ruin was always going to follow. The ruin is the small part. The seeing was the part I cared about. And me? You were not part of the plan. Elias, Nia, listen to me." He closed the laptop. He set it aside. He took her hand in both of his, the first time he had touched her hand on purpose, palm to palm, and the small shock of it ran up his arm and into his teeth. "I love you. I have loved you since the roof. I did not know I had the room in my chest for it. I thought I had used all the room for other things. I was wrong. Whatever happens next Saturday, whatever you decide to do with what I have just shown you, I love you. I am saying it now because I will not have you find it out by accident. I am tired of people finding things out by accident." She was very still. "Elias?" "Yes. Say it again." "I love you, Nia." "Once more." "I love you." She closed her eyes. A single tear moved down her cheek and stopped at the corner of her mouth. She did not wipe it. She opened her eyes and looked at him, and she said, "Elias Kane, you are the worst-timed man I have ever met in my life. And I love you too. I have loved you since the coffee. I walked across the river that night because I wanted to, and I told myself it was for the story, and I was lying. And I have known I was lying for 6 weeks, and I am tired of lying about it. I love you. I love you. I love you." He did not remember moving. He remembered only that her hand was around the back of his neck, and his hand was against her jaw, and the laptop was somewhere on the floor, and the basement radiator was hissing, and Marcus, 2 doors down, was playing music loud enough that no one would hear anything from this room for the rest of the night. He remembered the green dress had been in the closet of her dorm, not on her, and that what she was wearing was a faded Hawthorne sweatshirt, and that he had pushed the sweatshirt up to her ribs with hands that were shaking, and that she had laughed against his mouth and said, "Elias, your hands are shaking." And he had said, "Yes, Nia, I know, I'm sorry." And she had said, "Don't be sorry. Don't ever be sorry for that with me." And after that, there were no more sentences for a long time. The radiator hissed. The music 2 doors down kept playing. The lamp on the desk stayed on, low, and neither of them got up to turn it off, and at some point much later he pulled the blanket up over both of them, and she was already asleep, her cheek against his collarbone, her breath slow and warm against his throat, and he lay awake for another full hour in the basement dark and thought, This is the thing I am protecting. Everything else is small." The doubt arrived 3 days later, on a Wednesday afternoon, and it arrived the way these things always do, through someone who meant well. Marcus came to Elias's room with his face white. "Elias, you need to see this." "What?" "Spencer's group chat. I know a guy who knows a guy who got a screenshot. Elias, you need to sit down." "Marcus, tell me." Marcus turned his phone around. Elias read. The chat was 12 people. Spencer, Chloe, Tobias, and 9 others Elias did not recognize by name, but did by face. The thread was 3 weeks old. The first message was Spencer's, and it said, "Update on Okoro." The second message was Chloe's, and it said, "She's in. She said yes last week. She's going to do it at the gala. $5,000, plus the recommendation letter from my dad." The third message was Tobias's, and it said, "Make sure she signs the NDA before she gets the check. We don't want her writing about it after." And then, 12 days ago, in Chloe's print, "Had drinks with Nia last night. She's fully committed. She said the kid is easier than she thought. We are so on for the gala." Elias read it twice. He felt something cold move through him, slow, from the top of his head to the base of his spine. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter than anger, something that had been waiting a long time to arrive and had finally found a door. "Elias," Marcus said, "I am so sorry." "Marcus, listen to me. Where did you get this?" "A guy in my chem class. His sister is in the chat. She thinks it's cruel. She wanted someone to know." "Has it gone anywhere else?" "Just to me, just to you." "Keep it that way." "Elias?" "Marcus, keep it that way. Please." Marcus left. Elias sat on the edge of the bed. He looked at the photograph of his mother on the desk. He thought about the senator's Christmas cards. He thought about a girl in a green dress on Thursday night. He thought about a girl in a faded sweatshirt on Sunday night saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you," with her face wet. He did not for a long time do anything. Then he opened the encrypted line. "Ruth, Mr. Kane, I need you to verify something for me. I need you to verify it tonight. I need to know if the chat I am about to forward to you is real, or if it is a forgery, and I need to know who, in the chain of custody, has touched it. Send it." He sent it. He waited. He did not move from the bed. He did not pick up the photograph of his mother, although he wanted to. He stared at the radiator instead. He counted the hisses. 46 minutes later, Ruth called back. "Mr. Kane." "Yes. The chat is real. The screenshots are unaltered. The metadata checks. However, the Chloe Marchetti message from 12 days ago, the one quoting Nia Okoro, does not match Ms. Okoro's location data for the night in question. Ms. Okoro was not at any establishment with Ms. Marchetti that night. She was, according to the GPS on the phone you had us flag, in the library until 11:14 p.m., and then in Prescott Hall basement until the following morning. Elias closed his eyes. "Ruth, sir, you are telling me Chloe Marchetti is lying to her own group chat." "I am telling you Chloe Marchetti is lying to her own group chat, sir, and I am telling you I have a working theory about why. Ms. Marchetti has been lying to Spencer Vale for some weeks now about her control of Ms. Okoro. I believe Ms. Marchetti believed she could deliver Ms. Okoro on the night of the gala, and was inflating her progress to maintain Spencer's confidence. Ms. Okoro is not, and was not, working with them." He breathed out. He did not, in that moment, feel relief. He felt something more complicated. He felt the shape of the doubt that had moved through him like cold water for the last 46 minutes, and he felt the shame of having let it move through him at all. He had spent 8 years training himself not to want anything from anyone, and the moment he had wanted something, he had been ready, on a screenshot, to believe she had been the one to take it from him. He sat with that for a moment. He let it land. Then he opened his laptop and began to plan the gala. He did not call Nia. He did not text her. He did not, in the next 4 days, tell her what Marcus had brought to his door. He told himself he was protecting her. He told himself she did not need the weight of it on top of her own week. He was not, entirely, telling himself the truth. She noticed. Of course she noticed. She was Nia Okoro. She noticed when the milk in her coffee was the wrong percentage. She noticed the moment he stopped meeting her in the library on Wednesday night and answered her texts in single words on Thursday, and did not come to the diner on Friday morning the way they had started doing. She came to Prescott Basement on Friday afternoon. She did not knock. She walked in. She closed the door behind her. She stood with her back against it. "Elias Kane, look at me." He looked at her. "What is happening?" "Nia, don't Nia me. Something is happening. You told me you loved me on Sunday night, and on Wednesday you started answering me like I was a stranger. So one of two things is true. Either you lied to me on Sunday, or something has happened that you have decided to carry by yourself, and I want to know which one it is, and I want to know right now." He stood up from the bed. "Nia, listen to me. I did not lie to you on Sunday." "Then what?" "Marcus brought me a screenshot of Spencer's chat. Chloe wrote in the chat that you had agreed, that you were committed, that you were doing it Saturday." She went very still. "And you believed her." "For 46 minutes, Nia. I believed her for 46 minutes. The room was very quiet. Elias. I had Ruth verify it. Ruth said the chat was real, but Chloe was lying to her own people. Chloe has been lying to Spencer for weeks about her control of you. You were in the library that night. I knew you were in the library that night. And still, for 46 minutes... Stop. Nia. Stop. Elias." He stopped. She walked across the basement room. She stood in front of him. She put both hands flat on his chest. He could feel them shaking. 46 minutes, she said. Yes. You believed I had done that to you for 46 minutes. Yes. And then you didn't tell me. For 4 days. You sat with that alone in this basement for 4 days, because you decided I shouldn't have to carry it. Yes. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. Elias Kane, I am going to say this once. I am not your mother. I am not the senator. I am not the people who taught you that the way to love someone is to carry the worst thing alone in a basement for 4 days. The next time something happens, you are going to call me. Even if you are wrong about me, even if you are about to be wrong about me, you are going to call me. Do you understand? Yes. Say it. I understand, Nia. Now sit down. Because I have a plan for Saturday night, and you are going to sit down, and you are going to listen to it, and we are going to go into that gala together, and we are going to end them. He sat down. He listened. When she finished talking, an hour later, the basement room was dark, and the radiator was hissing, and his hand was in hers, and his other hand was over his mouth, because he was, for the first time in 8 years, laughing. The Founders Gala was held every year in the Great Hall of the Hawthorne Alumni House, a 4-story limestone building on the northern edge of campus that had been donated in 1908 by a railroad family whose name no one on the current board could quite remember. The hall had a domed ceiling painted with a mural of constellations that had been touched up so many times the actual stars no longer matched the sky over the campus, and the floor was a herringbone of dark wood polished to the point of treachery and heels. Spencer Vale had been planning the night for 9 months. The plan, as Marcus's source had it, was straightforward in the way these plans always were when rich children designed them. At 9:30, the lights would dim. A spotlight would pick out Nia Okoro on the small stage at the north end of the hall. She would, with her microphone in her hand and Elias somewhere in the front of the crowd, deliver a prepared 3-minute speech about how she had been paid to seduce a scholarship boy and how she had pitied him too much to follow through. Pity was the word Chloe had insisted on. Spencer had wanted embarrassed by. Chloe had won. Pity is worse, Spencer. Pity gets him out of Hawthorne by Tuesday. A second spotlight would then pick out Elias, alone in the crowd, while Spencer himself walked onto the stage in a tuxedo to read aloud the cheating confession email that had been sent under Elias's name in September. The lights would come up. Spencer would shake his head sadly into the microphone. Hawthorne deserves better, he would say. We are a community of integrity. The phrase had been workshopped. Tobias's father had a speechwriter on retainer. This was the plan they thought they had. This was not the plan they had. Nia arrived at the gala alone, in a long black dress that had not come from any store she could afford, because Elias had bought it for her on Friday night after she had refused, 4 times, to let him buy it for her. She had finally said yes only when he had said, very quietly, Nia, I am not buying you a dress. I am buying us a uniform. We are going into a room of people in uniform. Let me put us in one too. She had laughed at that, and she had let him, and she had stood in the dressing room of a boutique 2 towns over while a tailor pinned the hem, and Elias sat on a velvet bench and watched her in the mirror with his hand over his mouth. She walked into the great hall at 8:47 p.m. She did not look for Elias. She knew where he was. Back left, near the service door, in a dark suit she had also not seen until that night, his hair combed back for the first time since August. She did not look at him, because looking at him now would tell Spencer everything. Spencer found her within 90 seconds. He had a champagne flute in each hand. He gave her one. He smiled the smile of a man who had decided, weeks ago, that he was already winning. Nia, you look incredible. Thank you, Spencer. Are you ready? I'm ready. 3 minutes, just like we rehearsed. Pity, not anger. Pity, not anger. Good girl. He clinked his glass against hers. After tonight, the recommendation letter from Chloe's father is in your inbox by Monday, plus the 5. We take care of our own. I appreciate that, Spencer. Where's the boy? Back there, by the door. She did not turn her head. He thinks I'm meeting him at 9:15. Perfect. Spencer drifted away to find Tobias. Nia watched him go. She did not drink the champagne. She set it down, untouched, on a passing tray. Across the room, Patrice the groundskeeper, in a black caterer's apron, cleared 2 empty plates from a high-top table and walked them, without rushing, toward the kitchen. In her left ear she said quietly, Contact made, package received, going to phase 2. Ruth, in a van 2 blocks east, said copy. Elias, in the back of the hall, did not move. At 9:28, the lights dimmed. The room hushed in the way rooms hush when they have been told, by social cue and by cocktail hour, that something is about to happen. The constellations on the dome went dark first, and then the chandeliers stepped down to a low gold, and then the spotlight clicked on at the north end of the hall. It found Nia on the stage. She was holding the microphone with both hands. She was not smiling. She looked, from the back of the room, exactly the way Spencer had hoped she would look. Composed, regretful, a girl about to deliver a careful speech about a boy. The room waited. "Good evening," Nia said. Her voice was very steady. The microphone caught it perfectly. "My name is Nia Okoro. I host a podcast on this campus called The Margins. Some of you have listened to it, most of you have not. Tonight, I'm going to ask all of you to listen to it for the next 4 minutes, because what I'm about to say will be the next episode." A small ripple moved through the crowd. Spencer, near the bar, set his drink down very slowly. 9 weeks ago, Nia said, I was offered $5,000 and a recommendation letter from a sitting member of this university's board of trustees in exchange for seducing a fellow scholarship student named Elias Kane and humiliating him publicly tonight, on this stage, at this gala. The ripple became a wave. Heads turned. A woman near the front gasped, audibly, and was shushed by the man next to her, who himself had gone very still. The offer was made by Spencer Vale, Chloe Marchetti, and Tobias Reinhardt. It was made in the upstairs lounge of the Boathouse on the night of September 12th at approximately 10:40 p.m. The offer was recorded. With my consent and my participation, it was recorded by a device I was wearing, which was provided to me by a source whose identity I will not be revealing tonight. I have spent the last 9 weeks gathering further documentation. I have screenshots. I have audio. I have video from 3 separate occasions on which Mr. Vale described a project he and his associates have run every fall for the past 4 years on a rotating selection of scholarship students chosen on the basis of perceived vulnerability. They call it the hunted. The first victim was a sophomore named Daniel Park, who left this university in December of last year. I have spoken to Daniel. Daniel has agreed to be quoted. Daniel says, and I will read this verbatim. I thought I was the only one. I thought it was just me they didn't want here. The hall had gone completely silent. Spencer Vale was no longer standing near the bar. Spencer Vale was walking, very quickly and not quite straight, toward the side door. 2 men in dark suits Elias had not introduced to anyone, Ruth's people, moved into the doorway and folded their hands in front of their belts. Spencer stopped walking. Nia kept going. I am not the first journalist to try to write about the hunted. I am the first one with the documentation. I am also the first one with a partner. The student you were told tonight to pity is not the student you were told he was. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Elias? The second spotlight clicked on. It found Elias at the back of the hall in his dark suit, with his hair combed back. He did not move at first. He stood in the warm white circle with his hands at his sides, and he let the room look at him. He let them look at the scuffed sneakers he had deliberately worn under the suit. He let them look at the small tear at his elbow he had stitched in a hotel room 3 states away. He let them look long enough that they understood, without anyone explaining it, that they were looking at the same boy whose laundry had been thrown into the fountain in August, and that the boy had been letting them look the entire time. Then he walked slowly down the center aisle toward the stage. He did not look at Spencer. He did not look at Chloe, who had gone the color of paper near the dessert table. He did not look at Tobias, who had already taken out his phone and was typing very fast. He looked only at Nia. He climbed the 3 steps of the stage. He took the microphone from her hand. He turned to the room. Good evening, Elias said. My name is Elias Kane. The first part is true. I am a sophomore on a scholarship at this university. The rest of what you have been told about me is not. I am the chairman of the Kane conglomerate. I have been the chairman since I turned 18. We are a private holding company with significant interests in tech, energy, and infrastructure. 2 months ago, we completed the quiet acquisition of a small private equity firm in Greenwich, Connecticut, called Ardent Hill Partners. Ardent Hill is the firm Mr. Reinhardt's older brother contacted last month about a possible analyst position. Tobias, I would tell your brother to stop emailing them. The position has been filled. A small, awful laugh broke from somewhere in the middle of the crowd. Tobias did not look up from his phone. 6 months ago, Elias said, we also completed the purchase of a controlling interest in the Marchetti Group's Asian Logistics Division. Chloe, you may want to call your father after the dessert course. Chloe's champagne flute slipped out of her hand. It did not break. It rolled, slowly, across the herringbone floor and stopped at the foot of a man in a tuxedo who looked down at it, then up at the stage, then back down at it. "And Spencer," Elias's voice did not change. "Your father sat for dinner at the Chancellor's house 3 weeks ago. He sat there because he was hoping the Chancellor could intervene with a federal investigation of his shipping operation in Long Beach. The Chancellor told him, that night, that nothing could be done. The Chancellor told him this because the lead investor in the firm that triggered the federal investigation, a firm called Halliday Maritime, is also us, Spencer. The federal investigation is going to continue." Spencer did not move from the side door. Spencer did not seem capable of moving. Elias let the silence sit for a long moment. Then he said more quietly, "I came to Hawthorne University in August because the people in this room and the families they belong to have spent 4 years running a game that destroys students whose only mistake was being admitted. I came to see whether the game was as ugly as I had been told. It was uglier. I have spent the last 3 months documenting it, alongside Ms. Okoro, who did not know I was the one documenting until very recently, and who chose, on her own, before she ever knew who I was, to refuse the $5,000 and to do this work at her own expense and at her own risk. She is the reason this is being said tonight in a microphone instead of in a courtroom in 2 years. Although," he turned his head slightly, "it will also be said in a courtroom in 2 years. The materials Ms. Okoro has gathered have already been forwarded this morning to the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. I did not do that. She did. I want that on the record." Nia, beside him, did not look surprised. She had done it that morning. She had told him at breakfast. "To the rest of this room," Elias said, "I am not interested in any of you. I do not know most of your names. I will not be remembering them after tonight. I am here to tell you only one thing. The boy you are going to laugh at tonight is the man who has, for some weeks now, owned a controlling interest in the futures of 3 of your classmates. If any of you ever again decides to choose a scholarship student as a project, you will find that I am also a patient man." "Thank you for your evening." He set the microphone down on the stand. He took Nia's hand. They walked off the stage together. What happened after that, in the hall, Elias did not see. He heard about it later from Patrice, who had stayed through dessert in her caterer's apron and reported in calm bursts to Ruth. He heard about Spencer's father arriving at the front entrance at 10:14 p.m. in a coat thrown over a half-tied tie, and being refused entry by Ruth's people on the simple grounds that he was not on the guest list. He heard about Chloe Marchetti weeping in the second-floor bathroom while a girl she had not spoken to in 2 years held her hair. He heard about Tobias Reinhardt deleting his entire social media presence in real time, app by app, on the ride home in his Uber. He heard about the dean of students, pale and small, in a tuxedo 2 sizes too big, standing under the dome of the Great Hall and asking, of no one in particular, "Whose university is this? Whose university is this?" He did not, that night, care about any of it. He cared about the woman who was walking beside him down the limestone steps of the alumni house into the cold November air, her hand in his, her dress trailing slightly on the wet stone, her braids coming loose from the careful arrangement she had made of them at 6 p.m. in a dormitory bathroom with 3 of her friends helping her. At the bottom of the steps, he stopped. "Nia. Elias. You sent the materials to SDNY this morning." "Yes." "You did not tell me. You did not tell me about a screenshot for 4 days, Elias. We are even now." He laughed. He pressed his forehead to hers. He laughed for a long time, in the cold, on the steps, with his breath fogging white between them. "You are an irreversible woman, Nia Okoro. I know. You did the irreversible thing for me. Elias, I did the irreversible thing for me. You happen to be standing next to it." That is a better sentence than anything I said up there. "I know." He kissed her, on the limestone steps, in the cold, with the lights of the alumni house behind them and the campus's fake gas lamps in front of them, and somewhere far off the sound of a siren going somewhere that was not them. Her hands were cold. Her mouth was warm. His hand was at the small of her back through the thin fabric of the dress. He did not let go for a long time. When he did let go, she said, "Elias, take me home." "Where is home?" She thought about it. She tilted her head. She said, "Prescott Basement, I think. I think Prescott Basement is home." "Prescott Basement is home." He took her to Prescott Basement. He took her through the main door and down the stairwell that smelled like radiator water and floor polish, and he took her to room 214, and he closed the door, and he did not turn on the overhead light. The desk lamp was enough. It had always been enough. The radiator hissed. Marcus was not playing music 2 doors down, because Marcus, as it turned out, had been at the gala in the back of the room, recording everything on his phone with a steadiness Elias had not known the kid had in him. The basement was very quiet. She stepped out of the dress slowly, the way a woman steps out of a dress when she is no longer in a hurry, when the dress has done its work and the work is done. He helped her with the last of it. He hung it carefully over the desk chair, because she had asked him to, because she was Nia Okoro, and even on the night she had ended a 4-year campaign of cruelty in a microphone, she was a person who hung dresses up before she got into bed. He hung the dress. He turned around. She was already in the bed with the blanket pulled up to her shoulders, watching him. Elias. Yes. Come here. He came there. In the morning, there was light coming through the small high window of the basement room, gray and weak and the color of an early November morning that had not yet decided whether to rain. Nia was on her side, still asleep, her face pressed into the pillow, one hand curled under her chin. Elias lay on his back next to her and looked at the ceiling. The radiator was still hissing. The radiator had not stopped hissing since August. He listened to her breathe. He thought about his mother. He thought about the senator's Christmas cards. He thought about the boy on the curb in front of a Honda Civic. He thought, Daniel Park. I will call Daniel Park today. He did not think about Spencer Vale. He did not think about Chloe Marchetti. He did not think about Tobias Reinhardt. He had told the truth in the microphone. He was not going to remember their names. The lawyers would remember their names. The lawyers were paid to. Nia stirred. She opened one eye. Elias? Good morning, Nia. What time is it? 7:12. Why are you awake? I was thinking. About what? About a man I need to call today. His name is Daniel Park. He left this campus in December last year, and his mother drove him home in a Honda Civic, and he sat on a curb. I am going to call him today, and I am going to ask him what he wants. If he wants to come back to school, he is coming back. If he wants to go to a different school, he is going to a different school. If he wants to never see this place again, that is also fine, and I am going to set him up to never have to see this place again. I am going to do this for every name on the list. There are 4 names on the list. There may be more by the end of the week. She closed her eye again. Okay, Elias. I am also going to call my mother's old boss today. She opened the eye again. The senator. Yes. Elias. Nia. Listen to me. I am not going to do anything to him today. I am going to call his office. I am going to ask for a meeting in January. I am going to sit across a desk from him in January, and I am going to tell him my mother's name, and I am going to watch his face while I tell him. That is what I am going to do. I have been saving that since I was 13 years old. I am going to do it in January, and I am going to do it because I have a person in this bed who is not going to let me carry the worst thing alone in a basement for 4 days, so I am going to tell her about it instead. She was quiet for a moment. Elias. Yes. I'm coming with you to that meeting. Nia, I am not asking. I am telling. I am coming with you. I am sitting in the corner. I am not saying a single word, but I am in the room with you. Do you understand? Yes. Good. She closed her eyes. Now come back to sleep. It's 7:12. He came back to sleep. In December, Nia's expose ran in 3 parts in a national magazine, with Marcus's footage as the cover video. The Chancellor of Hawthorne University announced his retirement on the day the 3rd part ran. The Board of Trustees entered a state of what the press release called active reorganization. Spencer Vale's father was indicted in February. Chloe Marchetti's family's logistics division was sold off, at a loss, in March. Tobias Reinhardt withdrew from Hawthorne and enrolled at a small college in Maine, where, according to a campus paper Elias did not subscribe to, but Ruth forwarded him anyway, he was reported to be quiet and unfailingly polite. Daniel Park returned to Hawthorne in January on a new full scholarship endowed in his name and funded, anonymously, by a holding company in Delaware that no one could trace. The senator did not stand for re-election. The reasons he gave were personal. The reasons he gave were not the reasons. Elias did not propose to Nia at the Founders' Gala. He did not propose to her on a sunset porch. He did not propose to her on a roof, although the roof of the engineering building was where he had first known he would. He proposed to her in the basement kitchen of Prescott Hall on a Tuesday in late April, at 11:46 p.m., while she was making tea in the chipped electric kettle that Marcus had bought from a thrift store in October and donated to the floor. She had her back to him. She was burning her tongue, again, on tea she had not let cool, again. She was complaining about it under her breath in Igbo. He was sitting at the small folding table in his sneakers and his Hawthorne sweatshirt, with his elbows on the table, watching her. He said, "Nia." "What?" "Marry me." The kettle clicked off. She set her cup down. She turned around, very slowly. She leaned her hips against the counter. She crossed her arms. "Elias Kane. Yes. You are proposing to me in the Prescott basement kitchen, at 11:46 p.m., on a Tuesday, while I am burning my tongue on tea. Yes. There is no ring. I have a ring. The ring is upstairs. I did not bring the ring down because I did not, when I came down to keep you company, know I was about to ask you. I knew I was going to ask you this week. I did not know I was going to ask you in this kitchen. What changed? You said "Mwa" under your breath about the tea. You always say "Mwa" about the tea. I have been listening to you say "Mwa" about the tea for 7 months. I realized in this kitchen just now that I would like to listen to you say "Mwa" about the tea for the rest of my life, so I am asking you in this kitchen. I am sorry about the ring. She was quiet. She uncrossed her arms. She walked across the kitchen. She sat down in his lap, on the folding chair that Marcus had also bought from the thrift store, that was one of the worst chairs Elias had ever sat in, that he was not going to forget for the rest of his life. She put her hands on either side of his face. "Elias." "Yes, Nia." "Yes." "Yes?" "Yes. In this kitchen. Without the ring. On a Tuesday. Yes." He kissed her in the basement kitchen. The radiator hissed. The kettle ticked as it cooled. Somewhere 2 floors above them, Marcus, who had been told nothing but had guessed everything, was making more noise on purpose so that no one would come down and disturb them. Later, much later, when she was asleep against his shoulder on the bad couch in the common room with the television playing some old movie neither of them was watching, Elias took his phone out of his pocket and opened a single document. At the top, it still said, "List." Underneath, 4 names. He did not delete them. He never would. He pressed the little plus button at the bottom of the document and added a 5th line. He typed, "Nia, April, Prescott Kitchen, yes." He closed the phone. He did not put it back in his pocket. He put it on the floor. He pulled the blanket over both of them. The radiator hissed. He slept.